All right, welcome back, Rebel HR community. Extremely excited for the conversation here today. This is the third time that we've done this. We are actually going to be interviewing some SHRM conference directors on an upcoming SHRM conference, and we're going to be talking about all sorts of exciting things. To the podcast, I would like to welcome Millie Fiebelkorn and Lucas Sperfslage. They are SHRM conference co-directors, and they are helping run the conference for the state of Iowa, my home state, here October 8th, 9th, and 10th. And the conference theme is HR Full Throttle. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really excited for the conversation here today. We're going to be talking about all sorts of exciting stuff. But before we jump into that, so as a previous volunteer leader for SHRM, I know it is a labor of love and sometimes a thankless labor of love. So I'm fascinated for both of you, whoever wants to answer. What motivated you to help direct this state conference?
Well, I decided to continue again this year because I was helping Sam on the conference last year in the same role. It was a fun experience, but mostly you sign up for a 2-year term so that you can train the next generation of conference directors. And it's a different experience at each location, so you've almost got to do it twice.
Absolutely. So you are a glutton for punishment, or
Exactly.
you just love it so much. So yeah, for listeners, for longtime listeners, you might recall that we talked to Millie last year. So she is a repeat guest on the podcast. So welcome back, Lucas. What about you? What motivated you to help run this thing?
It's I've been on the committee in years past and at a different capacity, and so I have to echo Millie. It's been a great experience. It's fun helping shape the conference on what we feel like is relevant going on in the HR space, and it's been a good time organizing it. So yeah, in training for next year. So yeah, training for that glutton punishment, I guess.
Yeah. I like how, I don't know what it is about like SHRM volunteer positions, but it's like they say that you're in training, but really what it means is you get to do all the grunt work, right? So it's like a rite of passage or mild like positive hazing, right? I know we don't like using that word, but that's kind of what it feels like. So congratulations on your hazing year, Lucas.
Thanks.
All right. So, what better time to talk about the future of HR and kind of the innovation in our space than now? I mean, I think, if you turn on the news and you look at everything that's going on, it feels like the pace of change just continues to accelerate. And so, your theme, HR Full Throttle, that's kind of what it feels like, right? And sometimes it's not full throttle. Sometimes it's just hold on for dear life. Right. And so I'm curious, as you were approaching the conference and trying to figure out the programming and content and speakers, how did you approach that, knowing that it's such a dynamic environment in HR right
That's what we have a committee for.
now?
We let them do some of the labor of picking the speakers and figuring out who best to go with for the topics that are most relevant. I think my vision, and Lucas can chime in if his is the same or different, but my vision was HR Full Throttle is kind of a racing theme. You're going as fast and furious as you can to get through the week sometimes. You really don't have a brake pedal to slow down. So we just kind of take it as we can and find speakers that can go along with that. And I think we hit that with our keynote speakers this year.
Going full throttle, it can get tiring, but we wanted to, we really want our people who come to attendees to feel energized afterwards. It can get tiring, and it is, everyone's running 100 miles an hour, but that's part of the game. And we wanted to select speakers that understand that. Especially our keynotes, we had a special emphasis on, we don't want just like a regular a regular keynote, right? We want people to feel energized. We want people to get engaged for what's to come. I mean, we don't have a choice, so what better choice than to hop on board and enjoy the ride.
Absolutely. Yeah, enjoying the ride. I actually at a SHRM conference a few years ago, I went to a session literally called "Enjoy the Ride" by a guy by the name of Gilliland, if anybody knows his work. And that's tough. It's tough sometimes, right? Our jobs can be pretty challenging. A lot of times people are looking to us for advice, and a lot of times we're like we're just holding on for dear lives ourselves, and people are coming to us for guidance. So I know we've got a couple exciting speakers here at the conference, as well as an exciting pre-conference workshop. So why don't you give us a little bit of insight into the speakers that we've got lined up for some of these keynotes, and what the HR professionals will gain from that.
Yeah, so I'll kick us off with the pre-conference workshop. So it's a 4-hour presentation hosted by Sarah Ciavari. Sarah is a leader and follower of Dr. Brene Brown's work, Dare to Lead. So if you've ever read her books and followed along with her stories, she gives great direction and really kind of talks you out of a corner you may be in. She gives you some guidebooks on what you can follow, how you can build trust in relationships, and just be a better leader overall. And in this workshop, people are going to have multiple takeaways. They're going to have the toolbox built for them while they're there that they can take with them back to the office and know how to be a better leader and how to build that trust.
Love it. Yeah, I literally just pulled the Dare to Lead book off my bookshelf. No, nobody can see the camera right now, but great book. I've got like 75 folded pages and a bunch of highlights and things like that, and really good content if somebody hasn't had a chance to look at it. All right, what about the rest of the speakers? I know we've got kind of an HR all-star and then a unique closing speaker.
Lucas, you want to jump in on the opening?
Yeah, so our opening speaker, we're really excited to announce it's Johnny C. Taylor, the CEO of SHRM. And so, he's flying in. We were able to squeeze some time with him. And so he's our opening keynote, and it's going to be formatted in a little bit different format than maybe what we're accustomed to seeing. Basically, it's going to be kind of a round table with our State SHRM Council Director, Jason Glass. And so they're going to kind of just be volleying. We'll source for questions from attendees to see what they kind of want to hear about. And so they'll be kind of just kind of doing a mini roundtable, if you will, on the different HR topics that are submitted through the questionnaire.
I think that was decided on because there's just so much out there that our attendees want to learn about. It's hard to pinpoint a topic.
Yeah, I know. It's interesting. It's an interesting approach. And Johnny C. Taylor, of course, he runs SHRM, so he hears these types of things. So it's a really interesting approach to try to get as much different types of content as you can into the session. And then finally, who's your closer?
Rachel Druckenmiller is our closing keynote, and we are very excited to have her in all of her entertaining glory. Singer, songwriter, TED Talk speaker, you name it, she'll bring some of that fire that we need to help really energize people before they leave the conference after sitting through all those sessions.
Yeah, great content, super inspirational, really inspirational story as well. So sounds like a great lineup. I'll be down there. We'll have a booth if anybody wants to stop by. We're going to be doing some live podcasting as well. So if anybody wants to flex their podcast muscles, stop by the Rebel HR booth. I'm excited to be down there. So appreciate all the work that goes into the conference. I know it's just a lot of work, and it takes a whole lot of professionals that are volunteering to put this on. What do HR professionals get out of attending this conference? I know that it's obviously you pay for it, but what you get out of it is worth a lot. So what do they get?
Big thing I think people gain year after year is the networking. You're not just gaining the knowledge from attending the sessions, but you're building that toolbox again. You're building your pit crew, so to speak, of people that you can call if you have questions, people you can email and reach out to, and realize that you're not in this alone. And you may think that you've got a story to tell or an event that you want to go through that with someone else that no one's experienced before, and then you'll be talking to some of those other HR professionals and find out that they may have seen something similar or worse. And so you can vent together with those people too. And non-HR folks just don't always understand that.
I think another thing too is, I mean, it's also a good refresh, right? I mean, I know for me, it's easy to get stuck, not stay stuck, but just into the day-to-day routine, working on our projects. But coming to the SHRM conference, we talk about a lot of different topics, and it's easy to start getting the brain flow, the brainstorming going, and asking all these different questions, like, oh, maybe we can do that, or oh, what if we did this instead? So it's just a nice, quick little refresh button on approaching HR.
I love it. All right. I want to talk about a couple topics now. This wouldn't be Rebel HR without some provocative or rebellious questions or disruptive topics. So, one of the areas that I'm curious how you're approaching this with programming is an area that's interestingly become a hot topic because of some of the executive orders and administrative approach to it, and that's DEI, which has had a lot of headlines. So I'm curious, how are you approaching this topic within the conference, given the kind of the tenuous political environment around it?
Yeah, so this year we're actually doing something a little different than what we've done in years past. We actually have Claudia Chabelle. She's organized a DEI roundtable, or facilitating a DEI roundtable, and so this is geared towards more senior HR professionals, and so and it's not going to be your typical breakout session. It's going to be a conversation surrounding on what are we doing in the DEI space with our organizations? Kind of opening it up to have this space to bounce ideas off of, and really see what are we doing to help try and still accomplish what our culture goals are as it relates to DEI or inclusion, if you will. And so it's something that we're trying out this year. We're really excited about it. It'll be uploaded within Whova shortly to come, but yeah, we're excited to see how this plays out at the conference.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me. So, there's all of these executive orders and all these actions, and there's a lot of noise. But that doesn't mean that that we're all supposed to just stop doing all of this cultural improvement work, right? I mean, because for me, DEI has always been much broader than the way that we're defining it in these executive orders, right? There's so many different dimensions of diversity, and for me, it's more about the E and the I. It's about the equity and the inclusion, and then the belonging. And that's not about somebody's race or somebody's gender. It's much broader than that. So how are you approaching this when it's actually like recommended not to even talk about diversity in a corporate boardroom? Like, you're not even supposed to use that language anymore. How are we kind of working through this as an HR professional?
I think that question is exactly what the session is going over, right? I think a lot of people have that question, and I think this is the conversation is meant to see how are we approaching it. I know a lot of organizations are moving from DEI to just having inclusive culture and having it be, what kind of corporate culture do we want, to try and take that route. But I think the questions that you're asking are spot on and exactly what this session is meant to kind of go over and kind of brainstorm with fellow HR professionals to see how can we tackle this together and ensure that we are still achieving those goals that we are wanting, making sure that everyone that we are being equitable, inclusive, that we have that sense of belonging within our organizations.
Yeah.
And the bonus is that this is not a session that's going to cause you to miss out on other speakers or other sessions, because it's a free bonus session, so to speak. You register for the conference and you can attend the extra bonus DEI roundtable session Thursday morning before the opening keynote even starts, before the general session starts. So you have to get up early. Some people don't like that, but you do get a free bonus session out of it.
Worth it.
Yeah. You can avoid bad decisions the night before by making sure you're tucked into bed at a decent time and up early for the DEI roundtable. Sounds good. I like it. Yeah, I mean, my take, DEI is an interesting one for me, and my organization. So we're international. So DEI is not really it's not optional. It's just the state of the workforce. We are inherently geographically, racially, ethnically, and from a gender perspective, very diverse. And so it's already kind of woven within my organization's culture. So you can't really ignore it, So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, we got to change some words, but my take from an HR standpoint is always, listen, you systemize this, you operationalize this, and you make sure that this is just the way that we do business, as opposed to like a standalone initiative. So, a systemic approach focused on a culture where everybody can be successful, regardless of background, is really the name of the game. And there's a lot of really clearly validated studies that it's not really a nice to do; it's a business imperative. And so for a professional that's questioning that, this session can certainly help answer that. But if you're doing some soul searching and wondering how, is this a dead issue in the realm of HR? I think the short answer is no. But you do have to do it within the framework of what's legal. And so there's all these questions we have to answer as HR professionals. Again, this is an area where people are looking to us to lead. And so I appreciate you kind of tackling the topic head on. It'll be fascinating to see what the outcomes from that session are. I know one of the challenges that we're dealing with right now, and it's a little bit of a tangential issue with DEI, and that's immigration. Certainly in the state of Iowa, where we all reside, in this discussion, immigrant communities are a heavy component of the workforce, certainly in agricultural aspects of our economy, as well as many, many others. So I'm curious, what are we doing related to some of the immigration and talent challenges that we're facing in that context?
I will say that it's a very frustrating thing to deal with, because it's true that our communities are very immigrant based. I know that we're sponsoring the Latino Festival, the Latino Heritage Festival, here at the end of September for our company. And 90% of our workforce is Latino based. So we deal with a lot of individuals who have work authorization documents and have family and friends that have work authorization documents. And it's a fine balance of, do we have their documents tracked properly? Are we e-verifying? Are we making sure the expiration dates are on track? Oh yeah, did the guidelines change and now their expiration date has changed? So there's a lot of stress that comes down to it. And then having the conversations with the employees and explaining, or even the applicants, explaining to them that, look, this is what the guideline is. This is what we have to go by. And knowing that they just want to be here working. they're not trying to do anything wrong. They just want to work to support their families. So it's a hard balance between what's right for the company, what's right for the employees, and following the law as well, which we have to do.
Yeah. Yeah, to get that figured out, you let me know, Millie. I mean, I think that, the challenge is, I think a lot of us we're stuck in this mode of, hey, we want to do the right thing. We want to do the legally right thing. We want to do the ethically right thing. And we've got a lot of people who um, maybe want to contribute in our economy, but aren't able to do so. And you've got these HR people who, like, most of the time aren't even aware, right? And we've got these tools. They work pretty poorly in making sure that we're adhering to the law, quite frankly. And it's a tough challenge. It's a tough challenge. And so I think the big question that I have is what does that mean for the future of HR? So Millie, I'm curious, what do you do to manage through this when you find that you do have to do something different? That either inadvertently hired somebody that was not eligible, but you thought they were, or you can't execute on your business because you can't find enough people.
We went through a very tough situation probably about 3 years ago where we had an I-9 audit and ended up having to let 75 employees go. And when you're a workforce of 300 employees, 75 is a big chunk of that workforce that you have to balance between, and you have a very short timeline to work it all out, give them the chance to provide alternate documentation. Many of them don't necessarily have. Relying on staffing agencies was a big component of helping us get where we needed to for the short term, giving overtime to those who wanted to work overtime, and then start hiring and reaching out to other areas, other people that can possibly help us out. I will say that after all that, we are still predominantly Latino focused. We probably have 6 or 7 other cultures in our organization as well right now. Haitians are a big one that's coming on. We have Haitian Creole as a new language that we're trying to get some of our documents in place for. And it's a culture shift for the managers who haven't learned how to work with those individuals before and are now having to learn a different training style to get around that barrier. We're getting through it day by day. It's about all we can do.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I wish that there were better answers. I wish there were more clear answers. I mean, I think the reality is it's the paradigm that we have to operate within right now. That's tough. Simple as that. Then the other thing I want to talk, I'm curious to talk a little bit about this. So one of the things I appreciate about the conference, we've already talked about this. It's just a collaborative environment, right? You're talking to people that are speaking the same language. They're kind of we're all facing very similar challenges. I know a lot of times on this podcast and out in the community, a lot of I'm talking about how lonely it can be in HR, and that can be tough. So I guess I want to understand a little bit about what resources you have or what support mechanisms you have for the smaller HR departments, the HR departments of one, HR in a small business, maybe HR starting with 1, 2, 3 people. What kind of resources can you expect at this conference to help out folks like that?
I think that's where we come in with, a lot of diverse speakers. We have all the way from employee relations, civil rights, just general employment law. I think, there's a lot of different areas where our conference touches on from a compliance standpoint that I think would be really good resources. All the way from something as common as FMLA. I mean, we all deal with FMLA on some level, mostly, right? Generally speaking. And so our compliance pillar really touches on a lot of different avenues or pillars of HR. So I think the conference does do a good job giving kind of an overall comprehensive update on all things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
So I know, Lucas, you're one of those that's in a smaller HR department. What are pain points that you're dealing with right now that you're trying to solve within the realm of your department?
Yeah, I mean, we're always building out HR. I'm fairly new to my role, but we're still building out. And I think some of the challenges is, keeping a pulse on all the different legislation updates, right? We could be in the benefit space or employee relations space. And I think, you know, it's like, where do the changes stop and where do they begin? And so keeping just that constant pulse on what's going on out there. um, I think that can be kind of a challenge sometimes when you do have a team of one or two people. And so currently it's just a matter of you know staying in touch with our benefits consultants, staying in touch with any employment attorneys, just to see if we can't hit on those key areas. But just like anything, HR has a really huge scope, and it can be really easy to overlook one thing or another.
Yeah, I'm curious, kind of for both of you, how do you prioritize what you do on a day-to-day basis? How do you figure it out? I know that was certainly continues to be one of the bigger challenges in our jobs because they're so vast, right? They cover such a broad scope.
I actually got asked that question by one of my coworkers this morning who was trying to figure out how I remembered what I had to do on a regular basis when I've got so much that I need to do. I think it's difficult to find the right balance of your priorities. I mean, you can, as an HR professional, I keep lists, I keep sticky notes, I keep 3 or 4 calendars at a time between work and Sherman, family, and just trying to find that balance. I like to look at what is going to have the most impact on the company first and try to attack those items as top priority. And also what's going to have the most impact on the employees. And those have to be a somewhat equal top priority because employees are some of our biggest clients. Without our employees, we're nothing. We wouldn't have jobs to go to. We have to have some form of employee to work with. So I'll kind of go around your question and say, I don't know how to best prioritize things, but I'm trying to figure it out.
I think I mean, Millie has a solid point. I mean, figuring out priorities, I mean, it's just kind of that, you first analyze the risk. What's the risk to the organization? What's the risk to the employees? Weighing that out, and then seeing, what does have the most impact. We're looking at different HR software that can really help improve efficiencies. And so, it's this constant evaluation or assessment of, what's on our plate. Uh, but I think that's normal. I think that's every HR person, right? I mean, the work is so dynamic, and it does change. You know, Something that might be a small thing for us might be a really big deal for an employee. And so, taking that extra 5 minutes might have the biggest impact to morale, just because we did this really small thing for an employee, right? So I think it's just like anything else. It's just super dynamic in how we approach our work.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's one of the bigger challenges, honestly. And I think, if I can maybe, give my perspective, answer my own question. Um, I think that HR professionals, you could literally spend all day working on stuff that you think matters and make absolutely no progress, right? And I think all of us have had days like that, right? Where you go home and you're like, what did I do today? I don't know that I got anything accomplished today. I didn't move. There was no forward momentum today. um, and I think that's not just unique to HR, right? There's many people that struggle with that. And I think if you take a step back and you kind of audit the things that you spend your time on, stuff that really matters is what you both described. It's the employee experience. It's how do we reshape a culture. How do we help other people make better decisions? A lot of times we are helpers by nature and people pleasers, and we want to do that as a component of our function, hopefully. um, but it's tough, and so that's where I think you always in HR you always have to have a true north, kind of a guiding light that you're marching towards, or some level of mission statement that you're helping your organizations or yourself align to in the context of your work. And I think that, maybe I'll wrap up the conversation by saying that's why I do this. That's why we talk about these things on the podcast. That's why you are both doing this in the conference. It's to help people in our situation understand what really matters. How can I make a difference? And how can I help my organization succeed by focusing on the stuff that really matters? And I think that that's, one thing where I would say if you're on the fence about going to this conference or any other conferences or investing in yourself or personal development or making sure that you're as engaged as you can be, do it. Take the time to invest in yourself and your education, continuing education. I should mention you get 14 continuing ed credits if you've got a certification you need to get some credits for as well. Really appreciate you joining us today. I want to shift gears. I want to jump into our Rebel HR Flash round here. And I'm going to change the questions up on you two. You have the questions in front of you, but I'm going to change them up. So I warned you, there's not really an agenda to these conversations. All right, so let's start. I'm gonna go every other. All right, Lucas, where do we still need to rebel in HR?
That's a good question. I think a lot of the feeds that I follow are Mel Robbins, Brene Brown. I think we really do need to shake up on how we approach employees. I think our workforce is changing, and it is changing the name of the game of business as a whole. And so I think just continuing the conversation of how we view our workforce. I think in HR we do a good job making sure that it's employee forward, but I think how we engage with our workforce, I think that's constantly evolving, and so I think that's just a space that we can continue the conversation and to help better success for everyone, organizations and employees alike.
Absolutely, totally agree. All right, Millie, who is shaping the future of HR that we should pay attention to?
I think that's a tough question because there's so many different people and companies out there that have some impact on HR. I just saw yesterday, I think it was, a coworker sent me a link for these Apple AirPods that do as you go translation. So you could have a conversation with someone in one language and it automatically translates for them in the other language at the same time instead of waiting or hiring an interpreter. So tech-wise, I think that's something that we need to follow closely. I think it'd be beneficial, especially with our changing cultures. People-wise, I couldn't give you a solid answer on one person. There's just too many.
Show up at the conference and you'll hear some.
Exactly.
All right, Millie, what's the best way for our listeners to connect with you or get connected to the conference?
Connect with me personally. LinkedIn is probably the best way. Facebook, if you're on it, but LinkedIn is the best way to get in touch with me. As far as with the conference, go to the Iowa SHRM website and check out our agenda, our registration page directly from there.
Awesome. Lucas, what about you? What's the best way to connect with you?
LinkedIn all the way. I'm involved with the Eastern Iowa SHRM as well. So if you're in the Cedar Rapids, Iowa City area, that's another way to connect with me. But definitely hit me up on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll have a link. Open up your podcast player, click into the show notes. You'll be able to find a link to the conference. You can register. Registration's still open, so you got plenty of time. And looking forward to seeing you both here in October. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it.